processing the story so far. And what you'll be doing is viewing, hearing, listening, witnessing, and doing if we've got time. So you're going to need a lot of patience. And you're going to have an invitation into my brain. So apologies for that, because it's a bit of a mess. Oh no, it's cancelled. Set a timer for 1 hour, friend.
1 hour, counting down.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. That's how I was promoted.
Yeah, it's like having a husband. Do you have to do this?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just said that because I've been rude to him recently. This is the latest addition to my collection, which came from this morning's session from Paul.
I am the Virgin at the bottom of the garden. I am white, pure white. The snow is grey compared with me. I am the most conceivable conception ever conceived. I am white. Fairy Snow White, Ariol. Il n'y a de bien feliasom, hirem ya gemelo la tira suelo.
Miel saza, si won si shue son yugi, niet nava, no voir riviego jviei. Ariog. That's the backwards song I should have brought for you, and I didn't do it. So I'll do it now.
Thank you.
After the feedback was sent, open spaces coming up. That's the big workshop moment, followed by a trip to a quarry by the sea. I decided to work with the Salford Uni MA students on the journey of the book from 1988 to the current day. Now I need to put this away.
A voice cracked the silence like a mirror. The voice of vice grip. Welcome to my factory of mirrors. You'll be my slave of desire. Like the others, you'll become what I want you to be. Enslaved in my desire, you long to be what you see. And so you shall, a frozen image of desire, becoming trapped in the image you think you require. Empty, and deep black will gnaw through and through till you believe in that you see the real you. In that image, you will pay the right price with your lifeblood oozing oil, a giant displacer. You will be sold as a frozen image of figure cried and cried. And out of one tear that fell to the ground, a beautiful phoenix flickered, speaking in the voice of old man. Why did you choose the dream Cadillac, Earth daughter? The distorting mirror, not the golden water. Remember the fish, the phoenix, the fire. Vice grip deceives, distorts, he's a liar. The lie that slithered from the dawn of time. That what you see in his mirror is really you. That you can own others. That they are objects, not sisters and brothers.
I'm trying to remember. I'm going back in time, trying to pull back from behind my back and the back of my head memories of that very first performance in 1989 over the Golden Water. It was part of a project called the Fairy Tale Project. So yeah, I'm trying to sort of pull it all forward, because I find that today I'm sort of come full circle, because I am working with the research materials and the elements that informed this project that went around primary schools. That is now informing what I'm doing in a book that I've just written called Red Hair and Daffodil Friend. This book came out of that project, and I started it in 1989, but it never got performed. It was my contribution as a performer to the process that we were working on with the Fairy Tale Project that got ignored and not used in preference to the writer that I was collaborating with at the time, their material facilitated by the director that I'd appointed at the time to work on the project. So we were, for a long time I felt this story was part of my body and my telling and my physicality, and it just went on the back burner. It was a big lesson I had to learn in terms of collaboration, that when you're working as part of a group, and even if you are the solo person paying all the bills, hiring all the people, you've got to be able to give up what you care about, mostly. Sometimes that's quite a big lesson. And in order to learn things at that early stage in my career, it was really important for me to understand how to say, okay, that's fine, you know, how to say, right, I won't do Red Hair and Daffodil Friend. I won't do my story, we'll do your story, Peter. And that idea of working with the writer and letting the writer be the one who leads the process was something I fought with for many, many years and abandoned in the end. And if you read any sort of articles that have documented my work, you'll see that there is a struggle in the process of how do you work with the playwright, how do you work with the writer, how do you, I found I became a very physical performer, driven by physicality and not so much words, although I used words in all of my performance work. I had a bit of an aversion to the word, if you like. And I've only just understood this most recently, even though I'd done an English degree, become an English teacher, stroke drama teacher, had all that love of words. I never felt confident with words. I never felt I was an articulate practitioner in terms of, even now, this for me is not comfortable at all. I'm totally out of my comfort zone in trying to explain what it is I do. And I know that that's an issue possibly for you in making your presentations, possibly, you know, from your point of view, you're thinking, you're right at the beginning of those presentations, and how is it going to work? And that's exactly how I feel and wanted to put myself in that position today. What does it feel like to try and present something about your journey, if you like? So for me, it's important to breathe. It's important to wait. When I worked on this project with the team, I had £1,000 and I gave them each, I think it was £250. There was a designer, a writer, and a director, and then I think and a composer. And they all got the same amount of money, and I had to sort of sell the piece and develop the piece for touring, and eventually I broke even on that £1,000. But I did manage to take it to Edinburgh, and I did manage to get it round most of the schools in Coventry. But the fortunate thing about that was that I used to be a teacher in Coventry, so I knew everybody. I'd got my collaborators already, so I'd already set the tour up with my mates, basically, you know, people that I knew, and it all developed from there. But where it led me was into the arena of professional theatre and professional performance, and the Edinburgh Festival, and a run at the Edinburgh Festival for 3 weeks with 6 people in the room, even though it was a children's show with very little publicity and no publicity budget and all the rest of it. So it was at that time trying to get reviews, and it was about trying to, you know, persuade the Guardian to come in and see it, to persuade the Independent to come in and see it, to persuade the Scotsman to come in and see it. And it was a hard slog. It was a really hard slog. So my work developed more into writing with my body, devising with my body, physicalising emotion, and particularly mining my own personal history. So my family story started to find its way into the work. But I've realised that both in this performance and in this children's chapter book, there's still the sense of the autobiography there. I didn't realise this at the time, but I do know it now. So we're always writing our lives. We're always, I feel, we're always, you know, if we count this as a dream, maybe it's a sort of, yeah, an imaginary dream. I can see myself in all the characters in this story. I can see the feelings and the real sort of arguments I've had through my life coming out in this story, the political thinking coming out in this story. Where things are now is not what it was before. In 2010, my theatre company that was operating with £100,000 projects collapsed. We lost funding. we got kicked out of the museum that we were working in. We'd built to a company of 9 people, making a show called The Last Women, about last women to be executed through history. And it was going to go on a huge tour nationally, but the crash came. There was problems in the city where I was working in terms of the arts funding. So I moved north, and I found myself thrown again onto relying on my own resources, on my solo persona, if you like. So I did a lot of teaching, teaching movement and devising, but it was all solo. It was all just like it was as a teacher, being solo in the room. Very much like the solo work that I'd started out with, where I'd had collaborators, but I foot the bill. I took the grief. I worried about whether it was going to book up or whatever, or whether it was going to be a success or not. And I think even though we feel that we're collaborating and we're paying people and we're everything's equal and everything's integrated, at the end of the day, the personal responsibility can be huge, I think. So I'm now going back to how I started out, with £1,000 to make a show, paying people £250 each. But it's not been that way with this. What I did was I commissioned an illustrator. I've never worked with an illustrator before. I've always worked with graphic designers and what have you, but I've never worked with an illustrator before, so that was a huge learning curve for me. And I went through a process of trying my writing work out with various potential publishers, sending my stuff out to... I was really a learner in that new game of trying to get your children's book published. So I was totally even more out of my comfort zone with that than I am in this room now with this feeling. Because at least I'm familiar with talking about my work. I'm familiar with this room, but not having done this presentation before is uncomfortable, but nowhere near as uncomfortable as I found the process of getting this book out, which started, as I said, in 1989. Let's push forward to 2001, where I workshopped the ideas again with a children's group, and you can see that online as well, the story of red hair. And then push forward to 2017, when, having been again, I felt kicked out of a job that I'd served in as a solo artist, making a performance about poverty and welfare at Manchester University. Lost my job there, even though it wasn't a sort of regular job. It was a sort of, there was an understanding that I would always be going to teach there, and that all fell apart after I'd done this big project with them. Found myself again thinking, how the hell am I going to make a living now, because that's all stopped. So 2017 I found myself selling things on eBay, thinking I'm not going to really be able to, what am I going to do? That's all dried up. So I thought, well, what about this, what about Red Hair and Daffodil Friend? What about going back to that? writers at the moment are a group in Dorset who work under the guidance of a woman called Sandra Reeve. She's a movement practitioner who works outdoors in the environment, in the sea, on the cliff edge, in fields, in a church hall, in a village hall. And I've been working with her for the last 10 years. Once upon a time, a nun called Sister Rona, who saw my early work, said, "You should go and work with Sandra Reeve in Dorset. You really would click." 15 years later, I went to work with Sandra Reeve, and I haven't looked back. What has happened really with that work has provided me with an understanding of the difficulties that I've had as a kind of bit of a radical off the beaten track performer, where it's been a struggle to get my work understood or taken seriously by commercial promoters. That's not where I can play my work, really. I betwixt and between commercial and, I would even say, amateur work now, because I don't always get paid for what I do, so I would call it amateur work. And I have a question about the worthiness of work, if it's paid for or not paid for. I have a question around how, when you're an older woman and past your sell-by date, how can you still make work that's relevant? How, when you've retired, because they tell you you've got to retire, can you still resist that and say, no, I haven't finished yet, I've still got things to do? So it's that kind of area of work that I've been looking at since 2010, trying to find a new pathway. It started with losing my dad in 2009, and I went on a journey with that grief and made a piece called Little Blue Man with Sandra Reeve's guidance, and it was a walking performance in the countryside in Wootton Fitzpaine near Charmouth. And I found that so liberating, so embracing of improvisation, but also embracing of the learnt montage of work, embracing of everything that had brought me to that point. I find myself now taking this book there, and it was Sandra's husband, who runs Triarchy Press in Charmouth, that helped me get this to where it is. So with him holding my hand and with the encouragement of the group, I'm now working on a prequel to this book, which is looking at the characters, the character One Ear and his ancestors, who, if I link it with my autobiography, they were quarry
I'm
people.
Burley, and I'm a set maker. I've been working here for 20 years or more, breaking down blocks of granite to make these sets.